Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from Mobile Syrup, and today we're here with another smartphone review. This is the Motorola HD LTE, and this was recently released for RAZR exclusively, and this comes after Bell released the Atrix HD LTE, which looks fairly similar to this and has many of the same features, but this is better in a number of ways, and we will detail that in a moment. So let's take a look first at the hardware. When we turn the screen off, you can see that there is really nothing that differentiates the LCD from the bezel, and that's because this is using a Super AMOLED HD display, very much like what we see on the Samsung Galaxy S3. In fact, this is very similar to the Galaxy S3 in color saturation and other features, which we'll take a look at in a moment. Looking front on at the device, you can see it's quite boxy. It goes in a little bit on the sides, which is nice, and it makes it look a little bit thinner than it is. It's not quite as wide as the Motorola RAZR, which was released exclusively for RAZRs last year, and this has a significantly bigger screen at 4.7 inches. That being said, it does resemble the RAZR in many ways, except for the fact that it's a little bit thicker. It does not have that same chin that we saw with the camera sensor. So this is actually quite uniform throughout the back. You can see there's a tiny little bump here on the back, but it's a very, very well-made device. And for $99.99 on a 3-year term or $599.99 outright, it's actually quite inexpensive. So let's see what you get for your $100. First of all, we have that 4.7-inch 1280 by 720 HD display. That's pretty much standard in the industry now. We also have Android 4.0.4 with slight modifications by Motorola, but now that Motorola is actually owned by Google, this is quite toned down compared to their last few versions. You can see that it uses the standard trebuchet launcher with on-screen navigation buttons, but it does have a few additions here that Motorola has made to make your Android experience a little bit easier, and we'll go over that in a moment. So looking over the device, you can see that there is quite a bit of space between the screen and the bottom, and this bezel actually gets in the way of typing, because what it does is with the navigation bar on the bottom, it actually brings the keyboard quite a bit higher than you'd see it on a device like the Galaxy S3. Again, we'll show you that in just a minute. You can see on top here we have our front-facing camera and our headpiece with the Motorola logo on the back, on the top rather. Turning it over to the side, we see that the HDMI and micro USB ports are where they usually are on a Motorola device, and we're actually very happy that this has a micro HDMI port standard. We don't like that MHL port because frankly nobody uses it. It's very hard to find an MHL cable, and considering most manufacturers don't supply them in the box, nobody ends up connecting their phone to their television. Whereas it's very easy to find a micro HDMI cable or a mini HDMI cable, and it's very easy to plug it in and get 1080p output on your television. Here is a slot for your SIM card and your micro SD slot, and Motorola does include a little key in the box that you can pull out this drawer, so you won't have to be opening up any battery covers, for example, and this actually makes it a lot more secure. The the Atrix HD LTE rather, had a little slot where you put your thumb in, or your fingernail in, and you took it out, and that actually was quite disruptive to the design of the phone, so I really like this one here. Unfortunately, it does mean that you'll have to carry a key or a pin on your keyring just in case you need to take it out, but that's a small price to pay for aesthetic uniformity. On the front, on the top, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, and on the right side we have the power button and the volume rocker. Now these are made of machined metal with a little bit of a texture to it. The power button actually has a very subtle texture that is agreeable to the finger. It looks really, really nice, and I really like using it. The entire body, in fact, is made of this combination aluminum and Kevlar, and the ring around the side feels very nice, very premium, and is super well made. So I'm really impressed with Motorola. They've improved their manufacturing process quite a bit. This feels like a much more expensive device than its $99 price point. Going along to the back, you can see that that Kevlar backing has been maintained from its legacy RAZR device. There's an 8 megapixel camera here with a LED flash and a speaker that actually goes fairly loud, so you'll be impressed with the speaker output here. The 8 megapixel camera does not seem to be improved from previous generations, and it's one of Motorola's Achilles heels. They really have not stepped up their game when it comes to camera performance, although this does take excellent 1080p video. We'll show you in the full written review just how much behind the industry Motorola is, but their camera software has been improved quite a bit. So turning on the device, you can see that you have a 4-way lock screen here. Just by tapping your thumb on the screen itself, you can get shortcuts to whatever you want, but by default you have phone on top, camera on the left, text message on the bottom, and there's regular unlock on the right. You also have a really nice clock, and also the ability to change from vibrate to sound mode, which is a nice little addition there. Once we unlock the device, you can see that Motorola has actually simplified their home screen quite a bit. Like stock Android, you don't have the ability to move this Google search widget, but by scrolling to the right, you get the ability to add new home screens. By default, only one home screen comes on the device with a preloaded Google folder and pretty much nothing else. This 4-way dock is, you can edit it very easily just by dragging the icon off, and you can bring that icon to whichever screen you want. You can also, like in stock Android, create folders just by dragging one icon on top of another and then going in and renaming it. Looking at the keyboard, you can see what I was saying earlier, just how high up on the device it comes, because compared to a regular device, the space between the bottom of the screen and the bottom of the device is actually quite high. With that navigation bar, it becomes even higher. So you're going to have to readjust the phone in your hand and get used to typing pretty much halfway up the screen. Now, after a little while, I didn't have much of a problem with it, but it certainly does take some getting used to. If we scroll to the left here, we actually see a feature that was released with the Motorola RAZR M, which hasn't come to Canada, but it's a 4.3-inch device that we liked a lot when we went to New York a couple months ago. And everybody was using it there. It's a very popular device. This is pretty much the same device. It has a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage, that 8 megapixel camera, etc., etc. This quick settings menu is a really, really nice thing to have, and it makes that quick settings menu on the top here pretty much insignificant. A lot of other companies like Samsung and Huawei and LG, they all put their navigation up on the top here, which makes the notification bar a little bit busy. This looks a lot like stock Android, and all your settings are quickly accessible on this left-hand menu. To get into your all settings, you just click on that button there, or you could get to there from the notification shade. You also have access to important settings like your tethering and mobile hotspot, for example. You can check your data usage, which is really convenient, and all these other things here are pretty much stock Android. Now let's turn to storage. You see that this comes with 16 gigs of total storage and about 12 available, or 12 accessible rather, out of the box. You do have that option for a micro SD card as well. And the battery here is non-removable, but Motorola is touting all-day battery life with its 2500 milliamp hour battery. Now this is standard. This is not the max version that is available on Verizon. That actually comes with a 3300 milliamp hour battery. We've asked Motorola if that's coming to Canada. They wouldn't comment, but we're really hoping that eventually it does, because 3300 milliamp hours for a millimeter or so extra thickness really does not sound like a bad compromise to us. Nevertheless, 2500 milliamp hours is the same size battery as the one included in the original Galaxy Note. This promises excellent battery life, especially from the Super AMOLED HD display. Now, this is pentile, which means, unfortunately, if you look really, really closely, you will see a few aberrations, a little bit of pixelization on text, etc. Same problem as the Galaxy S3. However, let's go into Chrome, which, ironically, is installed by default. Motorola was very happy to say that the RAZR HD LTE was their first phone with Chrome pre-installed, and that's going to become standard with Jelly Bean on all devices. Now you see one of my favorite photo sites. This is 500pixels.com. I have the Motorola HD on the bottom, and I also have a Galaxy S3 on the top. Same screen. The Galaxy S3 is a little bit bigger at 4.8 inches, same resolution, but you can see here the screens look pretty much identical. Unfortunately, the Motorola suffers from a little bit of kind of softness in the overall look of the screen. The color saturation seems pretty much the same, but blacks are a little bit deeper on the Galaxy S3. So either Samsung has calibrated their phone a little bit better, or something is a little bit different, but Motorola stands up pretty well to the king of LCD screens. Now you're going to tell me, okay, the HTC One X has a better screen with the Super LCD 2. That's up to you. I really like the Galaxy S3. I like the One X as well. I think they're both beautiful screens in their own way. I prefer the Galaxy S3 just for day-to-day use, but overall I think the Motorola RAZR HD stands up there pretty well, and it is a better screen, in my opinion, than the Atrix HD LTE, which was a little bit smaller at 4.5 inches. So in terms of overall size, the Motorola RAZR HD is about the same thickness. It's 8.4 millimeters thick, but it doesn't taper the way that the Galaxy S3 does. So the Galaxy S3 looks a little bit thinner at some points, but in the middle they're about the same thickness. The RAZR is a little bit easier to hold in the hand than the original, and it feels very comfortable, especially when holding it up to your ear. The phone is incredibly fast. It's very fluid. I was only able to use the Galaxy S3 with Cyanogen mod to emulate the same speed, the same feeling of fluidity as the stock version of Motorola RAZR HD. I feel like TouchWiz and Sense and all those add a little bit of bloat to the overall Android experience. But this comes like stock out of the box. It's really, really nice. You can see these widgets here are really helpful, and you can add new cities to your default weather widget, for example. Everything looks really smooth. The benchmarks are phenomenal. This gets about 6,000 on the quadrant benchmark, for example. If you go into the app drawer, you can see there's really no bloatware at all. Rogers has not included any of their default apps, and it looks great. I'm really impressed with it. You have the ability to favorite certain apps from your app drawer, for example. The camera software, really, really nice. Very fast at taking photos. There's a lot of settings here that you can hide or access really quickly, and you can change a lot of these settings just with one click. So if we go in here, we have effects, for example. You can change things to black and white, blackboard, solarize. You can take landscape shots, for example, as well. You can also do panorama, as well as multi-shot and HDR. So this is becoming pretty much standard in a lot of the latest Android devices. You also have the ability to take 1080p video, as I said, and you can change that in the settings quite quickly. You can use slow motion or time lapse, which is really nice. And there are different scenes. For example, you can set it to record for concert in stereo, which will make the sound a little bit softer, and it'll try not to get the audio blown out. And you can also set it for wind reduction, which is nice when you are walking and are in a windy area. So that's the camera. And one other thing that Motorola has really been touting with their latest Android devices, Smart Actions. Now, I got a notification the other day suggesting this rule, so it'll kind of walk you through how Smart Actions works, but basically it's just a way for you to add a little bit more functionality in automation. So you can drive smart, for example, by getting into your car. You can set this to detect when you get into your car, for example, if you have NFC, an NFC tag. You can also just activate it when you get into your car automatically. You can turn on Bluetooth, launch your vehicle mode, put ringer to high, and auto reply to text messages. So it's really convenient and it's very, very powerful. Now if we go into the settings again, you can see there there's NFC enabled. You can just set that as well. So this does support Android Beam, and you can transfer data from one device to another. There's also Wi-Fi Direct if you are going to be setting up peer-to-peer as well. Now, this is an LTE enabled device. It's one of Motorola's first, and we'll show you here the speed test results over the RAZR network are just astounding. So I got 60 megabits a second earlier today. Let's see what we get now. We're not getting quite that high. We're getting about 42 megabits down and 27 up, but this is just absolutely incredibly fast, faster even than my home internet connection, and something that all three networks, Rogers, Telus, and Bell, should be very proud of, that they're maintaining these speeds, especially after the launch of the iPhone 5, where it obviously introduced an influx of new users to their networks. So this has been not such a quick look, but a pretty thorough look at the Motorola RAZR HD LTE, available for $99.99 on Rogers. And if you read through our review, you can get all the latest on the device and comparisons to other devices. So thank you so much for watching, and this has been Daniel from Mobile Syrup.